We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep on. What you want to be, going, you will see.
Oh, yes.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be, going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and it printed out $100, put a quarter in it, printed out $100, would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
Really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going.
Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We know that it's a holiday for some people, right?
Cinco de Mayo.
That's right. And so, well, tonight, anyway, if whether you are just getting started on your journey or you have been on this road for quite some time, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. We say that all the time. And so tonight is about you and the questions. Some of them are the frequently asked questions. Some were sent in, and some will be your questions. So if you have had a question that you have not had answered yet, or you have maybe you didn't get a clear answer before, or something has changed. If you have something that you'd like to know to help you reach your goals, tonight's about you. So get in here, jump in the chat. That's where you can ask those questions. Also, we haven't done this in a while, but let me find it real quick. Here we go. You can also, for those who watch us on the TV, it's a kind of difficult, right, to navigate through the TV. So here's where you can just scan this QR code, and then you can text us, and I'll be paying attention and can answer or read your question out loud while we're live here. But when you ask us after we're live, sometimes we get inundated and those questions can get buried. So that's just a heads up. It's better to do that when we're live, but anytime is fine, of course, for some of those who couldn't reach us. Okay, so ready here. We already have some questions that were sent in, and so we can get started with addressing those. Some of them are pretty standard, pretty traditional questions. It's just that sometimes there's not a whole lot of clarity around. You can get all kinds of different answers out here in the interwebs, right? So let's do that. Oh, great. Oh, hey, fam. Good to see y'all in the chat. Thanks for joining us. We don't know who's tuning in unless you jump in the chat and let us know. So there's that. You want to add something?
Well, just a couple things. So these questions are, I'll say, they are the standard questions that I receive. I think this is just an opportunity to kind of peel back some of the layers and hopefully assist those of you who, we're going to focus heavy on self-directed retirement accounts. So it's just kind of, I'll call it some of the consistent questions that I've been receiving over these last few months related to those. Matter of fact, I just answered like 2 or 3 of these exact same questions today. So it's a pretty consistent question that I receive, kind of breakdowns. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than I normally do. Matter of fact, I don't know that some of these items I've gone into this much detail, like even during some of the presentations that we've done in front of a lot of our REI groups. So this is an opportunity to kind of also address some of those standard questions. Also, if there are questions that you have outside of the scope of a self-directed retirement account, like an IRA or 401k, please feel free to ask those as well. Happy to answer. But I'll call it the initial information that I'll share is going to be heavy 401k IRA written.
Sounds like an amazing time. So get in
Super
here.
sexy. Super sexy.
Well, That's we're
Hey.
we're about taking all of those boring topics and adding some spice because they're important. We've got to get through it, and we've got to put some of these tools into action so that we can secure our future financially. That's the most important part, right?
That's it.
All right. Well, let's dive in. Oh, come on.
No, that's me.
No. No,
But,
that was
you missed the.
I didn't even realize I changed it. All right, doing it, rewind, doing it again. Here we go.
All right. So obviously there are several things that we cover, but again, today is kind of more heavily focused on self-directed IRAs and 401ks, kind of digging into some of those details. I've got a lot of, I'll call it new self-directed clients who are trying to understand how to leverage and use their account. And in addition, there are a lot of companies that offer self-directed retirement accounts. Matter of fact, there was a gentleman just this week that was eager to work with me, but he already has a self-directed 401k. And when he laid out what he had, and I kind of walked through some of the opportunities associated with this account just to make sure that it was structured properly. Turns out he has a really good self-directed 401k. And just to work with me, there's no cost to work with me. So I told him, hey, still, you have access to my calendar, still jump on my calendar when you need help. But he already had the tools necessary to be successful. There was really no reason to change what he had. I think he was a little bit disappointed in not being able to take advantage of some of the things that we offer, but he's properly structured. So it's just a matter of having those conversations when we need to. So there's no harm in just jumping on my calendar to be able to do so. So again, today is going to focus heavy on self-directed 401k. And I wanted to start a little bit differently. And I get this often, and normally I don't have an answer when I get this question. And it is, hey, I know I had a 401k with the previous employer, but I have no idea where it is. And usually I say something as simple as, take these steps because it's pretty easy. But I went down the path, I kind of, I guess, taking some of my wife's advice, I jumped down the rabbit hole of what does it look like if you can't find your 401k? So all I did was really go to Google. So the bottom line is, how much I wanted to kind of just share some information with you, how much in forgotten retirement accounts it actually exists. Well, there is a total of 29.2 million actual previous employer retirement accounts that are sitting out there waiting to, I'll call it, be reclaimed. So if you've worked for a previous job and had even a small retirement account, there's about 29.2 million of them out there. And in addition, in like total dollars, that equates to about $1.65 trillion. So there's about $1.65 trillion that's unclaimed. So here's an opportunity for you to kind of go down a path and kind of, if you have some out there, go get your money is the moral of the story. So what's that path? How do you go about it? Like if you have some dollars that have not been claimed, or you had a company that you used to work for that had a 401k, a 403b, a TSP, a government 457 plan, a SEP IRA, that you are unclear as to how to access or go identify where those funds are. The first step, call your previous employer. Now, you can start with calling the custodian that had it. So call Fidelity, call Morgan Stanley, but maybe you forgot or don't know who the custodian would be that actually had your previous employer plan. Then reach out to HR at your previous employer. Call the either one of two places. Either it's human resources. You can always start with the HR manager. And 9 times out of 10, they will send you to pay and benefits, or you can go directly to the pay and benefits department. And usually they'll ask for your social security number and probably maybe a birth date, just another identifier for you. But they should be able to, I'll call it, provide that information to you just purely based off the social security number. So again, it's reaching out to them. And then I kind of went a step further though. But what if that's not enough? Like, what if you can't access this information by simply calling your employer or calling the custodian that has that account? There are a few sites to be aware of, and these are sites that I just recently learned. One is the unclaimed retirement benefits.com. So this is an actual free site. It's sitting here. It's a national registry that allows you to be able to, what it is, I think you put in your some basic information, the state that you're in, and it will search through that state's database to see if there are some unclaimed retirement dollars for you. But in addition to that, there's unclaimed.org. This is for any, I'll call it any unclaimed property. So not just retirement accounts, any unclaimed property. You simply click on the state that you're currently living in, or click on the state that you left, and put in some of your basic information. Again, this site is free as well, and it will help you identify whether or not there's some unclaimed property, not just retirement accounts, but any unclaimed property is a way that you can kind of access those. And then the last one is capitalize.com. Capitalize, they are, let's see, how can I put it? The way they make their money is you put in your information, they will do the work to go identify where your previous employer plan might be. There's no cost to putting in your information and for them to go find your previous employer plan. But when you're ready to access that previous employer's plan, the way they make their money is they then transition. You can't, it's a little small, but the bottom line is they transition your previous employer plan into an IRA. So what it is, there's a markup between them finding your account and them sending you to a Fidelity or to another broker to be able to create an IRA, and there's a markup in there. So this is this site is not free for the duration, meaning putting your information in and identifying where one of your accounts are, that's free. But when it comes to transitioning it, there's a cost there. All of these, once you identify where your account is, you can really just leave the site there. Meaning, once you identify you do have one, once you identify where it is, then you just call them directly. And once you call them directly, then it's just a matter of getting on my calendar, and I can walk you through what that process needs to look like for you to be able to transfer your previous employer plan to another place. But I thought these were 3 interesting sites that, again, for those of you who may have an account out there that you're unsure as to where it might be, this is an opportunity for you to kind of do some of the groundwork to be able to identify where it is and go take advantage and go grab it. So,
Oh, but
go ahead,
if you don't,
sweetheart.
if you don't mind, Jesse has a great question.
Sure.
Once you find your forgotten 401k, do you leave it with the custodian or bank, or do you withdraw it?
So, my fiduciary hat, putting on my fiduciary hat, if you have a previous employer plan, the last thing you want to do is get hit by taxes and penalty, right? So if you find you have a previous employer plan out there, my thought is, one, if you aren't wanting to self-direct it, well, here's an opportunity to understand where it is, how it's performing, where it is. Is there an opportunity for you to be able to adjust some of the activity that's currently happening with it? Then the other option is, hey, here's an opportunity for you to be able to self-direct it, move it penalty-free, tax-free into another vehicle for you to be able to take action if you want to take action. And then I guess if there is no use for it and you want the cash that's in it, okay, then maybe there is an opportunity to withdraw the funds. But just know, any withdrawal from a retirement account, if you're under the age of 59 and a half, if you're not at retirement age, any withdrawal will be a taxable and penalizable event. So that's about 30%. I say again, if you want to avoid that, here's an opportunity for you to create your own self-directed retirement account, move those funds penalty-free, tax-free, and then there's other options that are open to you. And we're going to walk through some of those options. So, great question.
Yeah, great question.
Were there any others?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. So, I wanted to kind of also, we covered this a lot as well, but I wanted to kind of highlight maybe a kind of peel back the layers a little bit and give you less of my definition and share with you the definition of a self-directed IRA. And here's the moral of the story: a self-directed IRA, a self-directed, which means self-directed individual retirement account, self-directed IRA, is really at its core just a glorified savings account. A self-directed IRA, an IRA itself, is not special. Self-directed just means control, meaning I have control over my individual retirement account dollars. Okay. But in order to have that control, you have to have structure. Structure is what really makes it self-directed. So I have now control over these retirement dollars, and the dollars that actually fund that self-directed IRA can come from any, I'll call it earned income. So any earned income you receive can be used to fund an IRA. And again, self-directed just means control. Many custodians, custodian meaning bank, many custodians offer a self-directed IRA. So Not all self-directed IRAs are, I'll call it, equal. So you have to understand what they mean by self-directed. What I mean by self-directed is 100% checkbook control over the money that's in it. Meaning you have the ability to not just access those dollars, but you're able to invest those dollars in any vehicle you want, with the exception of the prohibited transactions. Not every self-directed retirement account you receive, not every self-directed IRA you receive has those same capabilities. We'll kind of dig into the details of what those capabilities are and how it comes about. But the moral of the story is not all self-directed IRAs are the same. Let's see if I missed anything. Don't think so. Custodian. So self-directed IRAs in general require custodial support. Again, custodian is just a fancy word for bank. So all IRAs, to include self-directed IRAs, even though you have control over those dollars, they do require custodial support. So when you introduce a bank, when you introduce a custodian, what you're introducing are fees, meaning there's a cost for a bank to be able to support your retirement account. And it's in the form of check writing fees, balance writing fees, stuff like that. With a self-directed IRA, a true self-directed IRA, there's an opportunity to negotiate those fees. But the bottom line is, in order to have the structure capable of you being able to own this account, it does require some support. And so, okay, as it relates, so that's a self-directed IRA. So how is that different from a self-directed 401k? Well, a self-directed 401k, again, IRA, individual retirement account, glorified savings account. A self-directed 401k, hence a 401k. A 401k is a pension. So self-directed is saying control over an actual pension. A pension like a 403b, a TSP, 401k, these are all under the same or similar IRS code. So these are all pension accounts. And in order to have a self-directed 401k, in order to have a 401k in general, there has to be some business. Some business has to sponsor the 401k. Again, with an IRA, all you need is any earned income can fund an IRA. Anyone can have one. But in order to have a 401k, there has to be a business. Again, we'll dig into some more of those details, but you have to have a business. That business is then owns that 401k. What type of business? Well, any self-employed income can fund or have their own 401k. So self-employed 401k is another name. And some people also call them solo 401k. Self-employed 401k, solo 401k, self-directed 401k. All the same, just a different name. And again, funded with it's a qualified retirement account. The plan can be because it's a qualified retirement account. That just means that it's an IRS approved account. It's really all that means. And it follows the same, I'll call it, rules that a self-directed IRA would follow. And in addition to that, the opportunities that you're able to invest in using your self-directed 401k are the same as what you would be able to invest in with a self-directed IRA as well. There are some differences between the two, but as it relates to what you can invest in using the self-directed retirement account, it's the exact same. Meaning the same thing you can invest with the self-directed IRA, you can also invest in using a self-directed 401k as well. And it kind of mentions down at the bottom, non-traditional investments, meaning what can I invest in? Well, it's everything. Not just the traditional items that your IRA or 401k traditionally invest in at like a Fidelity or a Vanguard, meaning mutual funds, stocks, and bonds, but you can also invest in what's called non-traditional investments, meaning investments outside of the stock market. But what are those? Again, we'll get into all of that. So, another question that normally comes up when we're talking about IRAs and 401ks are this thing called checkbook control of your IRA or checkbook control of your 401k. Like, what does it mean to have checkbook control? Meaning, I've had several people that I've worked with who have what they consider to be a self-directed IRA, and they're even able to invest in non-traditional investments. But when I ask questions like, do you have checkbook control over your IRA? Meaning, is it a checkbook control self-directed IRA? There's a little bit of confusion. And every now and then I'll get the question, well, I want a self-directed IRA, but is it an IRA LLC? And not really being clear as to what it even means to have an IRA LLC. Like, what does that mean? IRA LLC. Let's kind of dig into that as well. So ultimately it looks like this. In order to have checkbook control over your self-directed IRA, there has to be some structure designed into that IRA. And that structure looks like your IRA purchasing an LLC. And a lot of times people confuse when I state your IRA has to purchase an LLC, a lot of people think they can just use the current LLC that they have. Well, it's not. The issue with I'll call it a checkbook controlled, self-directed IRA, that structure matters, and how that structure is determined is very specific. Meaning the IRA has to use specific custodians, which implies custodial fees. And the IRA has to create an LLC that involves a lawyer. And the plan documents created by that lawyer, meaning the articles of organization or the operating agreement, has to be very specific to that retirement account. So not everyone who offers IRAs or even self-directed IRAs have the capability of producing the articles of organization and the operating agreement associated with having checkbook control over your retirement dollars. And then obviously there's tax implications, or can be tax implications if it's not done properly. Is it ERISA, ERI? ERISA. Is it ERISA? I'll call it. Is it an ERISA structured retirement account? It usually comes into play as well. Here's the moral of the story there. I think these are just tactics they end up becoming, like, I'll call it bait and switch opportunities, or these are tactics to charge you more than maybe required under a properly designed or properly structured retirement account. Meaning, if you have a true checkbook control self-directed IRA, the IRA itself has to purchase that LLC. So if it's structured properly, the IRA, the self-directed IRA you have, has all of these boxes already checked, meaning the articles of organization and the operating agreement are already structured properly for you to be able to invest in what you want. So there's no questions there. And as it relates to tax implications, if you are investing from your self-directed retirement account, what you have to remember is you are not doing any of the investing. You are the manager of an IRA, and you are acting on behalf of the IRA. So if the IRA is investing, you aren't taking any action. The IRA is taking action. Well, if your IRA today that has mutual fund stocks and bonds, if those mutual fund stocks and bonds do great, what's the tax implication on the growth of those stocks and bonds inside of your traditional IRA with Fidelity? About zero. Well, if your self-directed IRA is buying an apartment complex, and that apartment complex is paying rent, and that rent is going back to the IRA, and those dollars are staying within that IRA, what's the tax implication? About none. So the moral of the story is, again, I think these are tactics that kind of force people to pay more than maybe they need to. But at the core, it really doesn't impact the ability to be able to take action when you want to take action. And then that second half of that question, a 401k LLC. Again, in order to have a properly structured self-directed IRA, it requires the IRA to purchase an LLC. Well, if that's required for an IRA, the assumption is that action must also be required of the 401k. Well, it isn't. And why is that? Again, this is where structure comes into play. I don't expect you to kind of be able to read all of this, but the moral of the story is it's about structure. If the retirement account is structured properly, structured effectively, then you're fine. So as it relates to the 401k itself, the 401k.
You mind making it bigger so they can see?
This is about well, I know. Yeah, I can. Give me just a minute. Let me unlock it. There we go. All right. So now I can.
Okay.
Just a minute. All right. Come on. All right. There we go. So,
hey,
as it relates to the structure of a 401k is a pension plan. A 401k is a trust. So as a result of being a pension plan and or being a trust, just creating a 401k gives it its own EIN number. And as a result, because the 401k has its own EIN number, the 401k is not required to be, it's not necessary rather for the 401k to then have to create an LLC, meaning the operating agreement and the operational agreement and the plan documents required for an IRA aren't the same. Meaning, because this is already a trust, because it already has the features of a trust and has its own EIN number, it's just a matter of taking the EIN number of the 401k and then opening a checking account. So it's not that difficult, is my point. It's not that complicated to be able to create a 401k. So actually, it's actually a little bit easier. Now, there are a few more steps, meaning there's a few more interactions with your state that are required. But the moral of the story is, the process is a bit cleaner for us to be able to create. It just means there's more of those steps to be able to do so. And my point to all of that is the processes are different. And as a result, because the processes are different, there's not a requirement for the 401k to need or have an LLC in order for you to have 100% checkbook control. Again, we will go over that a little bit more as well. So as it relates to custodians, I've kind of mentioned custodian a few different times. So when I'm talking about a custodian, again, all I'm saying is bank, meaning an IRA requires a custodian in order for you to have checkbook control. A 401k does not require a custodian, but obviously you will want your money to be in some type of FDIC insured bank. So just because it doesn't require a custodian doesn't mean it doesn't have one. Doesn't mean we're not connected to a bank. Any bank can hold a 401k. It's just a question of will they or do they have the capability, meaning the infrastructure to be able to manage. But there are many different types. There's a few types of custodians that we all deal with. The first type is an active custodian. An active custodian is like your Bank of America, your Morgan Stanleys, your Chase banks. These are your large institutions that, again, we all deal with, meaning you can invest in what you want as long as it's what they offer. So as long as they offer the mutual fund stocks and bonds, you can invest in those mutual fund stocks and bonds. But if they don't offer it, you cannot put your money into it unless you step outside that bank. Whereas also an active custodian is the type of, I'd say these are the ones that KKOS use, Equity Trust uses, IRA Services uses, a directed IRA. These are active custodians that when you want to use your retirement account to invest, you have to get their approval. There's many of those out there. And again, they allow you to invest in what you want, but you have to get their approval to do so, meaning and again, it's to protect you. So it's not a bad thing. It's just as it relates to those of you who have an understanding of how to invest outside of the market, these actions that you're wanting to take, you don't have a whole lot of time, which means you have to be very diligent in the process that you're taking in as far as being able to invest. So if you're waiting on some custodian to get back to you to approve this process, it could cost the opportunity that you're wanting to invest in because it takes time. So you have to plan for it. So if you have a custodian like this, you probably already know you have to plan for opportunities, meaning you have to get ahead of this process in order to be able to take advantage of. Well, the custodians we use are 100% passive. What that means is they are a bank. They're digital. In most cases, they're digital banks, but they are a bank, FDIC insured, but they play zero role in your ability to be able to take action. Why? Because you are the sole decision maker. You are the one that decides what action needs to be taken, when that action needs to be taken. So, and therefore, as a result, it doesn't, you're not waiting on them to be able to tell you when it's okay. It's just as simple as you writing a check. Again, you have a self-directed, checkbook controlled 401k, which means if you want to take action, it's just as simple as filling out the details of the check and taking action or whatever that wire transfer needs to look like.
Yep. We have some questions if you're at a point.
Yeah, jump in.
Okay. Okay. Tom wants to know what costs initially and annually for converting my Roth IRA to a self-directed, and is $5,000 too small to go self-directed?
So if we're talking specifically a Roth IRA, the thing about Roth in general, when you have any vehicle in Roth form, it has to remain in the form that it's in. So what that means is if you have a Roth IRA, you can self-direct it, but you only have one option with a Roth IRA. You can convert that into a self-directed Roth IRA. That is your only option. So can you do it? What's the cost to create a self-directed Roth IRA? The cost is what is it, $13.50. Now that $13.50 is just the cost of creating the account itself. As I mentioned, IRAs do require a custodian. And because it requires a custodian, the custodian we work with for our IRAs is Titan Bank. And those custodians have what I'll call a flat fee schedule, is what they have. So there are additional costs associated with having I'll call it semi-active custodian with your account. But again, it's an IRA, so it requires this. But again, we were able to negotiate those fees fairly low compared to others. But the cost to create the IRA itself is $13.50. Is $5,000 too small to go self-directed? If we're talking about a self-directed Roth IRA, $5,000 is not. The contribution limits for a self-directed Roth IRA, which I just pulled up, are $7,000 and $8,000 for an IRA. So if you've got $5,000, that's more than enough to be able to contribute to an IRA, and those contributions can be done with any, I'll call it, any earned income. So they can come from pretty much anywhere. So as long as any earned income, that can be contributed into that IRA. If we're talking about having a self-directed 401k, and if you're talking about moving Roth IRA dollars into a 401k, you cannot. If you have traditional IRA dollars also in that IRA, you can move those traditional IRA dollars into a self-directed 401k. And that's a penalty-free, tax-free transfer. Even if you wanted to then convert those traditional dollars to Roth, once you get them there, you can do that as well. So you can have a Roth 401k. You just can't move Roth IRA dollars into a self-directed 401k, just so we're clear. And then the cost for a 401k, cost to create a 401k, that cost is $15.50. And again, that because that $15.50 cost is an all-in flat fee, no other charges. Because we're able to have a passive custodian with a self-directed 401k, that passive custodian charges zero fees. So there's zero maintenance fees, zero check writing fees, zero balance transfer fees. We're able to eliminate those fees with our self-directed 401ks. And specifically, we were talking about contribution limits. The contribution limits for a 401k, depending on your age, are much higher than an IRA. It's $23,000 if you're under 50 and $30,500 if you're over. And as you know about any pension plan, IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, government 457 plan, in most cases, you have a match. Well, if you had your own self-directed 401k, you would also be able to do what's called a profit share. Profit share is just another word for match. You're able to match 20 to 25% of your additional income. Now, the 20 to 25% depends upon the type of business that owns the 401k. But the moral of the story is you're able to contribute an additional 20 to 25% of your income up to $46,000 on top. So if you're over 50, we're talking what, 76,000? Oh no, 76,500, which is pretty awesome compared to the 8,000 that you're able to contribute in an IRA. So hopefully that answered that question. Is there another?
Yep.
I'm
Okay,
listening.
we had one sent in. I read on your site that this is a tax shelter. What does that mean?
So tax shelter is just basically saying, well, let's look at it from the perspective of if you've ever had a W-2 job, and if you ever had a retirement account tied to that W-2 job, meaning you're making income at that W-2 job, let's call it $5,000 a month, just making up a story. And there's a certain portion of that $5,000 that doesn't come to you. There's a certain portion of that $5,000 that gets contributed to your retirement account with that company, contributed to that TSP, contributed to that 403b, contributed to that 401k, whatever it would be. Well, what's happening is there's a portion of your earned income that's being contributed into that 401k. So as a result, your earned income has reduced, meaning it's no longer 5,000 that's actually in your hands that you're able to use and pay bills. It's something less than that, which means you have reduced your taxable income. And as a result of reducing your taxable income, that amount that was placed into that vehicle, that 401k, that TSP, it's sheltered from traditional income taxes. So if you want to, so what a 401k does or an IRA does, it allows you to shelter a portion of your income that will then not be, I'll call it, um, impacted by taxes, impacted by your standard income tax. Now, how you put that money into that account matters. So if you're putting it in a from a tax deferred perspective, meaning you're not paying taxes, you're not paying income taxes on it today. You're putting it in this vehicle such that it's growing tax deferred, it's sheltered from taxes. But when you go to take a withdrawal, when you go to take money out of it, when you're finally at retirement age and you're riding off of the sunset, living on that beach, and you go to take, I'll call it standard withdrawals from that retirement account to be able to use as income, that is when you're going to be taxed. So you're sheltered from taxes while your account is growing. But once you've reached a point where you're now leveraging the money in that account to be able to use as income, that tax deferred becomes a that I'll call it that tax exempt status now becomes a point where you now owe taxes on the amount that you're withdrawing. So it's a deferral of tax, and the vehicle that you put your money in is sheltered from any tax implications while you're building it up. Long way to get there, but hopefully I got there.
Yep. Oh,
Any
that's
other
great.
questions?
Yeah, we have a few more. Okay, when you're starting a self-directed 401k, do you have to fill out self-employed deferral agreement with the CPA?
So there is if you now who you get your self-directed retirement account from matters. Let me talk about our process. So if you were to get a self-directed 401k from me, there is in your list of documents that you have in your account, there is, I'll call it a self-employed deferral agreement in there, but it's really a fairly simple statement. It's just you saying, it's you documenting how much money you made and how much you're contributing into your 401k. It is, please don't overcomplicate this process. It is very, very simple. And it's really just you taking note, making note of, yes, I do have a retirement account tied to my normal income. And hey, IRS, I am noting, or I'm making sure you are aware that of the $100,000 that I made this year, 25,000 of it went into this 401k. That's really all that document is saying. It's not super detailed. It's not super technical. There may be 3 or 4 boxes on it that have that are required to be filled out, but it's fairly simple. And it's a document that we offer to you. Now, there are some custodians out there that will do it for you. But in most cases, as it relates to a self-directed retirement account, you are the sole decision maker. You are the one that takes action. So we'll provide the documents, but as far as actually filling them out, that would be on you.
Okay, her next question is, if you sell a property that is under an LLC, is that income to self-directed 401k?
If you sell a property that is under an LLC, let's start there. If you sell a property that is under an LLC, the LLC is the owner of the property. The LLC sold the property. Real estate is one of those tricky spaces or tricky areas where there is being in the business of real estate, and then there's being a real estate investor. Depending on which you are, there are different, I'll call it rules associated with how you account for the sale of real estate. This is where you really want to involve your tax professional, because understanding the role this LLC plays in the process of selling this property really matters. If you're in the business of real estate and the company owns that property and you sell it, is it profit or is it income? How do you know if it's profit or if it's income? Well, how you fill out your tax returns, how you fill out your tax documents will determine whether you sold a property and made a profit or you sold a property and you had income. If you had income from that property, meaning if the sale of that property is income coming back to that business, then that income can absolutely be contributed into that 401k. But if the sale of that property is considered, I'll call it, it's like the sale of a stock. You had Amazon stock that went from $5 a share to $1 million a share. Did you make a profit or did you make income? Obviously, that's profit, right? That stock went from $5 to $1 million, and then whatever that difference is, that's profit coming back to you. And in a lot of cases, when you're selling, again, understanding where you are in this real estate space, there are moments where the sale of a property is just a stock that appreciated. The sale of a property is profit, not necessarily income. And who determines that is really between you and that tax professional, just so we're clear.
Okay, and Jesse wants to know, if you're too nervous to self-direct, then is it wise to leave your IRA or 401k with its current custodian?
So we're actually getting to the end first. My last slide says this: what's the goal? And you guys have been on, those of you who I'm talking to, I know you guys have been on this channel a lot. I What's the goal is the crux of everything that we do. Everything that we talk about is based on the goal. So I'm going to restate that question, not if you're nervous, it's what's the goal? Why do you want a self-directed retirement account? Maybe it starts with I want control over my money. It's mine and I want control over it. Okay, cool. A self-directed retirement account will give you control. But just because you have control over it doesn't mean it's growing. Just because you have control over it doesn't mean your money's making money. Just because you have control over it doesn't mean you are now away from the market and your money is no longer at risk. So it starts first with what's the goal? Is the goal to not just take control over your funds, but I have this opportunity down the street that I want to be able to take advantage of. And I know it's going to be a lucrative opportunity, but I just don't have the capital to be able to take advantage. Man, it would be awesome if I could have more control over my retirement dollars, be able to take advantage of that opportunity. Okay, based off that goal, we can create the structure for you to be able to go do that. But if you don't have a clue as to what the goal is, maybe your money is better off sitting where it is. Because here's the truth about self-directed retirement accounts. And when I'm talking about self-directed, I'm talking about money you have 100% control over. If you aren't taking action, that money is not working for you. So if you move those funds into a self-directed retirement account and you don't take action, guess what? Your money's sitting there collecting dust. So before you decide as to whether or not you want control over your funds, let's step back and let's talk through what's the goal.
All right. Well, that's it for now. Jesse had another question, but I was asking for more context because I think it was in the moment, maybe asking that question. So once he chimes in with that, we'll get back to that. Okay.
Perfect.
So back to the vibe board. There you go.
So next, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. Differences between IRAs and 401ks. Again, IRA requires a custodian, a 401k does not. Contributions are higher. But the other piece is this. Again, going back to the goal. Let's say you're doing velocity banking and you can't qualify for this personal line of credit. You can't qualify for this business line of credit. You can't qualify for this home equity line of credit. But you've got this previous employer plan over there with $100,000 in it. And you know, if you can get access to some capital, you could address this debt that you have and put yourself in a much more positive cash flow position fairly quickly. Well, guess what? In an IRA, if you wanted funds out of your IRA to be able to leverage and use personally, the only way you can do that is a taxable and penalizable event. Whereas with the 401k, you can actually leverage and or borrow against it, meaning a leveraged dollar amount isn't a debt tool, but a leveraged dollar amount can put you in can give you an injection of cash that allows you to be able to then take action. So what do I mean? You're able to borrow against your 401k for 50% of what's in it, up to $50,000. Compared to an IRA, you cannot leverage any dollars out of your IRA without being taxed and penalized. So with the self-directed 401k, you're able to borrow 50% of what's in it. So using this example, again, you've got $100,000 in a previous employer plan. We create a new self-directed 401k for you. You transfer those funds from that old employer plan into your new self-directed 401k. You are now in a position to be able to borrow against it. You can borrow 50% of what's in it up to $50,000. Let's say you borrow the 50 grand. Well, who set the terms on what it is you borrowed? You do. Who set the interest rate on what it is you borrowed? You do. Who are you making payments back to? Yourself. So now you've got this $50,000 in cash. You've created the loan documents. You've written the check, and the check has now been transferred. The $50,000 is now sitting in your checking account. What can you do with that $50,000? Anything you want. So if you needed some influx of cash to be able to pay off some debt so that you can free up more cash flow, you now have an influx of $50,000 to be able to do so. And you owe yourself. You have now just become your own bank using or leveraging your own self-directed 401k. And now, as you pay yourself back, meaning as you replenish the $50,000 you just borrowed, you get to then borrow it again if you need to. And again, I get it. When I say borrow, that implies a payment. Yes, there is a payment that you have to pay back to your 401k. You set those terms though. And think about it. If you're using the $50,000 to free up cash flow, my gut says you probably are freeing up enough cash flow to be able to pay yourself back and do other things. Because again, you set the terms. $50,000 divided by 5 years, you have 5 years to pay it back. $50,000 divided by 5 years or divided by 60 months. And whatever that interest rate is you set, that dollar amount is the monthly amount, quarterly amount, or I wouldn't go past quarterly, monthly amount or quarterly amount that you're paying back to yourself while also addressing your debt. Again, we talk a lot about velocity banking on this channel. This is one of those actions that you can take to be able to put yourself in a much more positive cash flow position. Once that's all done, what do you have? Well, you've got a replenished $50,000, increased cash flow to go do what? Well, here comes the secure compound interest account, or here comes maybe putting yourself in a much more, not just a positive cash flow position, but you've just improved your credit worthiness. So now here's an opportunity to maybe now go after that home equity line of credit or that personal line of credit or that business line of credit to be able to take even more action. My point is, it becomes a tool. It becomes another tool for you to be able to use to be able to put yourself in a much more positive cash flow position. And so, in addition, we talked about structure. We talked a lot about structure of the IRA versus the 401k. Again, IRA requires a custodian. In order for you to have access to your IRA dollars, a custodian has to be in place. But that doesn't give you checkbook control over those IRA dollars. In order to have checkbook control over those IRA dollars, the IRA itself has to purchase an LLC. An operating agreement and the plan documents of that LLC has to be properly structured, properly designed to fit this IRA. What does that ultimately mean? It has to be a manager to manager LLC. That's all it means. But the bottom line is the structure matters. And once you have that structure, using the EIN number of that LLC allows you to then open up a checkbook. And so what happens is you're funneling dollars from the IRA into the 401k. I'm sorry. You're channeling dollars from the IRA into the checkbook of the LLC that the IRA owns. And let's say you write a check from this LLC to purchase a property. And using Tadam's question, let's say you sell that property. And the proceeds from that property have now come back into the checking account of the LLC. Can you take income from the checking account of the LLC? Can you take anything personally from the checking account of the LLC? The answer is no. The best thing that you can do is you can move those funds out of the checking account of the LLC back into the checking account of the IRA. So even if you're at retirement age and you're ready to start taking distributions, you cannot take distributions from the checking account of this LLC. Why? Because you don't own that LLC. You don't own the checking account of that LLC. Who owns the checking account of that LLC? The IRA. And I get it, you're the manager of both, but because you don't own the checking account of this LLC, in order to be able to take distributions from your IRA, you have to move funds from the IRA back. You have to move funds from the LLC back to the IRA. And once you move those funds from the LLC back to the IRA, you then can take distributions from there. And again, this is assuming you're at retirement age. If you're not at retirement age, you can't even take distributions from here. Versus having a 401k. Having a 401k, you move those funds from your old custodian into the 401k. That 401k is a pension plan. That 401k is a trust. That 401k you have full control over and already has the structure capable of being able to do what? Open a checking account. Why? Because the 401k has its own EIN number. We take the EIN number of that 401k, open that checking account, and as again using Tadam's example again, the 401k, the check, you write a check from the 401k to go purchase that property. You sell the property. There's a positive return. That return comes back to the checking account of the 401k. If you then wanted to borrow 50% from your 401k to use it personally, where do you borrow it from? You borrow it from the checking account of the 401k. Let's say you're at retirement age and you want to start taking distributions. Where do you take those distributions from? You take those distributions from the checking account of the 401k. Everything happens here because it's properly designed, properly structured for you to be able to do so. Last thing, and we kind of already touched on this, but we talk a lot about what you can invest in using your self-directed retirement account. Well, before we talk about what you can invest in, we have to really dig down and understand why we even want a product like this. Why would you want a self-directed IRA or 401k? Meaning, what is the ultimate goal? Like, why is this even a thing? If it's not a thing to be able to invest in non-traditional investments like land, REITs, subject twos, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, tax liens, precious metals, factoring your own receivables, limited. You can buy businesses, limited liability companies, private placements, private businesses, hard money lending. If you want to do hard money lending, water rights, deeds and notes, subject twos, you name it. Matter of fact, I'd say this all the time. This is a really short list. This does not encompass everything that you can actually invest in. The key piece to remember is, what can you not invest in? You cannot invest in life insurance. I'm a life insurance provider. You guys know this. You cannot buy life insurance using your self-directed 401k. Sorry. You cannot buy S Corp shares. S as in Sam. I did not say C Corp shares, but you cannot buy S Corp shares. And the last piece is you can't buy collectibles. And that's antique paintings or antique cars, stuff like that. But outside of those three things, you can invest in whatever you want. There is no limitations to what you can invest in, meaning it's really more limited to your imagination. Like, how creative can you get? And if we're going to talk about what you can invest in as it relates to non-traditional investments, we also have to highlight who can't be involved in what it is you invest in as well. And that's the that's the disqualified persons, meaning there's a certain number of people that can't be involved with your retirement account. So again, if you couple the disqualified persons with the prohibited transactions, it's really a short list that you cannot invest with or in. But outside of that, the world's open to you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
We've talked about this before, and we've also shown it in as a part of a machine. So I think context also matters. How does this fit in the machine when we are talking about even how we used it? If we were able to utilize this to feed our machine, just those things are not on this list. And so how can someone get around that red tape, or is there a way to legally use it in a different way if you need to, so that you can leverage your own money?
So that goes back to what I just stated as it relates to borrowing from your 401k. So again, how did it help us? How did this process help us? Well, we couldn't qualify for a mortgage. Credit was horrible. So we were introduced to Velocity Banking, and we were using Velocity Banking to improve all of those things. Well, what was missing was some influx, because I couldn't qualify for a line of credit. So what we ended up doing was creating a self-directed 401k, borrowing against that self-directed 401k, using that influx of cash to reduce our DTI, which then improved our credit score, which put us in a position to be able to qualify for some type of line of credit to then do what? Do Velocity Banking. And then in the midst of doing Velocity Banking and freeing up cash flow and paying back the money that we borrowed from ourselves, well, once we replenished the vehicle, meaning once we paid back the money we borrowed from ourselves, guess what we were able to do? Borrow it again. To do what? How about then transition to opening our secure compound interest account, putting our money at play? So we use Velocity Banking to improve our credit score, get us in a better credit worthy position. and then took that money that we borrowed to then open up a secure compound interest account and also qualify for a mortgage, which ultimately helped us be able to qualify for a first position HELOC to be able to replace our mortgage, to be able to free up more cash flow, to be able to put into a secure compound interest account to pay back the loan that we just borrowed. Like it all talks. It
Yeah.
all talks.
And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because we talk a lot about having full control and taking control. And I think if a lot of people had access to this information, right, especially right after this crash happened, we can't control those things. But this is one thing we could. So imagine you're stuck in the mud. If you've ever been in this situation, you know that it completely sucks. And there's not a lot you can do unless you get really creative with whatever tools or items are around you, right? But you know that if you have something that you can stick underneath that tire, right, then you can get enough leverage that you can get out and you can get back on the road. And essentially understanding how to utilize the tools that you have available to you is that wedge, is that rope, is that plank of wood, whatever it is that is going to be able to give you just what you need to be able to get back on the road. Meanwhile, other people they don't understand how to even use it. They see the plank of wood, right? They may have a whole bunch of rope in the back of their car, and those who have ever had to dig themselves out of a hole, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Other people might be like, she is totally this is going over my head. Hang in here with me. The point is that everyone can have access to the same tools, but if you don't understand how to use them, they could just sit there unutilized, right? While somebody else, knowing how to use this, could look after you've waited days, right, to be rescued or to call the tow truck, and it becomes way more expensive to get out of that situation. Somebody else goes, oh, you had a rope and a plank in your trunk the whole time, right? And you're going, well, what difference does that make? I have no idea what you mean by that. And they're going, oh my gosh, you could have avoided this huge catastrophe if you would have just understood how helpful these two tools would have been for you in this situation. This would have lasted 5 or 10 minutes. And that's the power of information. So that's why I was asking for you to share that, because we aren't out here going, we're rich, we're experts. We're saying we have been where you are, where the majority of America is right now. We've been there, and we've fallen victim to the circumstances that a lot of people did in that 2008 crash and had to dig ourselves out. But we did so creatively, and we know that if we could do it, other people could do it too. So,
And here's right. And normally when I talk through retirement accounts and vehicles like this, I bring up the owls, because the thought process is, and again, the three owls are life insurance companies, financial institutions, and banks. My objective is to educate you on how to become all three. There's nothing wrong with life insurance companies, financial institutions, and banks. The key for me is how they make money a certain way. They make money on the backs of us. Well, what if we could learn how to make money like them? How to leverage the vehicles that they leverage. And when we leverage those vehicles, then we can become them. We can become our own bank. Then we aren't necessarily, I'll call it, handcuffed or required to be submissive to whatever their expectations are. We're putting ourselves in a position to where we now have these vehicles that we can take action on our own without being required to, being held back or shackled by what it is they tell us we can or can't do. So the key is the control part. Self-directed is about control. Self-directed is about you being able to take action when you decide. Well, how do you do that if you're not leveraging the vehicles that you have at your disposal to be able to do so?
but who is leveraging those vehicles?
That's it. If you're not doing it, again, if you don't understand compound interest, I guarantee you there is someone making compound interest off you.
Right. Yeah. Peaky.
Oh my God.
Wow, man. I know. Thank you so much. First of all, where the heck have you been? I hope you're well, because we definitely miss you when you're not here. And we really appreciate that. So please let me know the time, and we will be there on Thursday for these Zooms. He makes a good point, though. It's not just how to control the money that you do have or take control of it so that you can understand how to take advantage of opportunities and be able to identify those opportunities. It's also about not spending more in taxes than you need to so that you can keep
Right.
more of it, right? Not putting it in a casino where you have a more of a risk of losing what you've put in, right? And what you've grown, and being able to leverage it for other opportunities. And I think that's the part right there where we miss out because we are looking to qualify for banks. We think, oh, I've got to fix my credit first. I've got to do all these things before I even deem myself worthy of taking steps towards building wealth. These are the relationships that we have justified within our communities even, and we say these things to each other like, well, forget it. I've got to do all A, B, and C before I can move forward. And I have to be able to understand things at a level before I can even take steps. And by the time you look up, have you done all those things? Or has it, and why has it been 10 years, right? Have you achieved those goals? And why did it take how long what are the compound cycles that you've lost in the meantime? Like, what's the growth potential that you've lost in the meantime too? This is why we have to change the conversations that we're having and start normalizing discussing these things, even amongst friends, right? Some people say like, oh, I don't like talking about that stuff. This isn't like politics. This isn't like religion. Shouldn't be a taboo issue. This is financial security. This is each one teach one. I figured out something that was working for me, or I can at least bring you to where I am versus saying I'm waving to you from where I am, right? And somebody else feeling timid, like I want to ask what they do, but it's rude to ask what they do. Why is it rude? Why is it rude? Would it be rude if somebody else could cook better than you and you ask them like, what is it that you do to your steak? Or what is it that you do to this dish to make it so good? Would it be rude to ask that? Because they're getting better results because they have different information to do things in a different way. That's it, right?
And I think that's the part. It's the question asking part, right?
Yeah.
It's you don't know what you don't know. But when you see these little pieces of information placed in front of you, then we have to do a better job of asking better questions. And it all starts with why and how. Like, how is this possible? And then, why didn't I know this before? Then you learn, well, who benefits from you not knowing?
Yeah.
And then because I think we give banks, financial institutions, and life insurance companies way too much credit. I think we have been conditioned to believe they are the subject matter experts. And in truth, they just have the information. It's not that they are subject matter experts, because 9 times out of 10, you're just dealing with people who sell. All you're dealing with is someone who wants to sell you a product. They don't understand that product probably any more than you do. They've just been conditioned to, as in, these are the steps you take, and this is how you get that product. Once you start peeling back the layers on these products, you realize they're not really that complicated. And the reason they're pushing this product on you probably is because it's their highest selling item. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the one that works best for you. It just means it's the one that makes the most money for them. And so then you kind of understand, okay, then what are those vehicles that can be structured properly to actually benefit me? And then you have to go through the salespeople to get to the people who actually understand how to actually be able to support you. And 9 times out of 10, it is not your local branch.
Well, and this is becoming so much more common with influencers too. I have the issue even going on Amazon right now and looking at the reviews. Does this product work? With so many people promoting products, it is really difficult to understand, does this work? Or because this is a high price point and there's a higher commission could be earned off of this, they're not going to say anything bad about it because they wouldn't want to lose out on that opportunity. They've got, people are out here making an income off of content now, and how that has influenced a lot of this discernment that we were using before, right? That's a frustrating thing. However, sometimes it's that people just don't know what they don't know either. And so they're trying to do the best with the keys that they have, and all they have is a key to unlock this one door. And so they're just unlocking that door. I think the people who know better and are still doing what they're doing, and they're not educating themselves past this point, maybe that arrival syndrome that we were talking about before. Yeah. I think that, there's an ethics issue there, but I think the majority of people really have been sold that this is the window to look through. Don't look through any other window, right? This is the one. versus let's go take a tour of this house and look through all these, go through all the doors and look through all the windows to see the view and understand what is possible for this space, right? What your ingredients are and what we can make with it. However you want to, whatever analogy you want to use that. The point is that it's not one size fits all. And so that's why if we get educated at the ground level, right? We understand from the roots to the fruits. We then understand when we see an issue or when we have to maybe pivot in the process because of market conditions, because of things we can't control, because of life happening. It could be that before you were saying taking care of a loved one or a family member. Maybe those are some of the things that happened that you were not planning for. And so now what? This isn't part of traditional retirement planning. So how does this fit in without being penalized or taxed for something you can't control, right? This is understanding how to creatively structure things so that you can avoid those penalties.
And it's that word control because, and I think it's such a perfect word because people ask me all the time, when do I anticipate rates dropping and what do I anticipate happening with the de-dollarization and repression? And I get these questions all the time. And here's the thing. I don't have a magic wand, no crystal ball. I have no idea. But here's what I can tell you. Becoming self-directed means control. Because I have more control over the equity in my home, or I have more control over my 401k, or I have more control over, because I have a cash value life insurance policy with that's properly structured to be able to leverage the dollars in it, I have the ability to pivot. So I don't know what's going to happen, but regardless of what happens, we are in a much better position to be able to pivot when it happens than we would be if my money was tied up in mutual funds, stocks, and bonds with Fidelity. We are in a much better position to be able to pivot if we now versus if we had some Fairway mortgage 3.5% mortgage payment that we were making on this home. Like it's about control, being able to take action when the opportunity or the situation presents itself, whether that's an emergency, whether that's a tragedy, whether that's an epidemic. We have the ability to we're flexible. We have the ability to adjust. Can you adjust? And if you're not in a position to adjust, then what are those actions you need to take to put yourself in a position so that you can adjust when those situations present themselves?
That's it. Jesse was asking earlier, so it's like a paycheck, and I asked him for more context on that question because I didn't quite understand. I think he was talking about the distribution. So, oh gosh, nope. I thought we had starred the other part to his question. Hold on one second. He was talking about the IRA and taking a withdrawal. You were saying that it gets taxed. So he was relating that concept to a simple paycheck from your job in the same way. You're getting a distribution now like a paycheck and it's just getting taxed the same way. He was just trying to confirm that.
No problem. And because I think the comment I saw from him said, slow down.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. Did. I get it. I do get it. And thank you for that feedback. So as it relates to so there's just some distinct differences between an IRA and a 401k, whether we're talking self-directed or not, doesn't matter. IRA versus a 401k. When you are at retirement age, though, all retirement accounts function the same. But if you're referencing, hey, I want to start taking distributions, I want to start receiving a paycheck from my retirement. When you start receiving a paycheck from your retirement, there's certain boxes that have to be checked. And again, whether we're talking IRA, 401k, 403b, it doesn't matter. When you start getting a annual, monthly, quarterly paycheck from your retirement account, certain boxes have to be checked. One of the major ones is you have to be at retirement age, 59 and a half. So if you have a traditional retirement account, non-Roth dollars in it, and you want to start taking distributions, receiving a paycheck from that retirement account, you will be taxed on those distributions. Why? Because the money that's been growing in them has been growing tax deferred. Meaning you didn't pay taxes initially when you started. You didn't pay taxes on the initial contribution. You didn't pay taxes on any of the growth inside of that account. But the minute you start taking income, call it $40,000 a year, call it $50,000 a year, whatever it is, you're going to owe taxes on that $50,000 check that you now have. And it's going to be at whatever the tax rate is when you start taking that distribution. So if it's 30 years from now, whatever the tax rate is 30 years from now, you're going to owe taxes on that. Versus if you had the exact same account, but you funded it with after tax dollars, meaning you funded it with Roth dollars, and therefore what's growing inside of this account is growing tax free, not tax deferred. So if the money growing in it is growing tax free, when you go to start taking distributions at somewhere beyond age 59 and a half, again, regardless of what that age is, those distributions using the same $50,000 amount, every time you take a distribution of 50,000, meaning every time you got a paycheck for $50,000 a year divided by 12, okay, whatever that monthly amount is, that distribution, that check is tax free. You owe zero taxes on the amount that you're receiving now as income. Hopefully that paired all that up. And again, I appreciate the slowdown.
Jay says, if I take a loan from my current employer's 401k, can I use that towards an MPI strategy? It's a great question.
Any leveraged money can be used for anything you want. So if you borrowed money from your company, your current employer's W-2 job, you borrowed money from your current employer's 401k, can you use it to start a SKIA, start an MPI plan? You absolutely can. If you borrowed from your own self-directed 401k, you can also use that dollar amount to leverage or use it for whatever you want to include, fund a SKIA or an MPI plan. You absolutely can. Yes.
All right. And hey, Lolo, we haven't seen you in a while.
Hello.
Hope you're doing well, and thanks for tuning in. I have funded my self-employment pension with after-tax dollars. Does that mean it could be converted to a self-directed Roth IRA? It's a great question.
So my self-employment pension, does that mean self-directed 401k? Does that mean self-directed IRA? Don't know. But depending on which you mean, does that mean I could convert it to a self-directed Roth? Stop. Let's take the IRA part off. Because depending on if you have an IRA, a self-directed IRA that you're funding with after-tax dollars, or if you have a self-directed 401k that you're funding with after-tax dollars, funding it with after-tax dollars is saying you're funding it in a Roth fashion, which means it absolutely can be converted to a Roth account. Well, how do you do that? Well, you would have to create a Roth sub account inside of your pension plan, your self-directed pension plan, whether self-directed IRA or self-directed 401k. You want to create a Roth sub account, and then those dollars would be, I'll call it funding that sub account, and you still have control and or access to those dollars the same way you would your traditional dollars. And you would also be in a position to be able to convert the traditional dollars in that same account over to Roth and moving those into that Roth sub account. So again, does that mean it could be converted to a self-directed Roth? Hard stop. Take that IRA part off. Regardless of which account we're talking about, you can absolutely convert those dollars over to Roth. So yes.
What's really interesting is we even see it in the questions through this live stream. How many people have referred to a Roth IRA as if it's the only type of Roth account? And it's just because we don't know what we don't know. And so some of this is we just have heard it so many times, Roth IRA, that it becomes
it's back here. It's back. It's our conditioning, right? They've done such a great job of advertising and conditioning us to believe that a Roth IRA is the pinnacle of what retirement is. And again, it's conditioning. But when you start peeling layers back, you learn that there are other opportunities out there. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come out as everything is a Roth IRA.
Yeah, it's I wish there was like a way we could just get the information out there, spread the message around why or why not have a Roth IRA? Like what are the options? And Is there something better? Why do they promote a Roth IRA so much? And why do they never talk about a Roth 401k? Who
Goes
benefits?
back to the original definition of an IRA. What is an IRA? An individual retirement account. Like, what does that mean in English? It's a savings account. And because it's just an IRA, IRAs do not have the structure required for you to be able to control them. So it requires support of a custodian. What's a custodian? It requires support of a bank. That support comes at a cost to you. So banks get to charge you fees and they get to nickel and dime you to death and get paid on your growth year after month, year after year. So they end up making actually more on your account than you make. So
Well,
why wouldn't I promote a Roth IRA or an IRA in general if all I had to do was take your money and nickel and dime your proceeds and your earnings to be able to sustain my lifestyle? Why not?
here's the thing though, they don't get that money when you've become retirement age. So after all the ups and downs, there's not like the 1% or 2% that comes out at the end of it all. This is a siphoning that happens along the way, right? And this is the part I wish people would understand. They get that money along the way. So they have bought their homes, they have paid off their debt, they have invested that money already into their retirement, they have created financial security, whether or not that money lost, right? Your money lost money or it grew more money. It doesn't matter. They don't ever lose money or have some sort of like a chargeback or payback on the commissions that they ran off of your account. Now, every industry has a way of making money. That's just life, right? That's our society. We understand that. Is it wrong for somebody if they're managing it and they're doing a good job and you're winning too? I don't know. We'll leave it there. Okay, we have mixed feelings about that. Is it wrong if you end up with not enough, but the people who managed your account just off of your account alone have had more than you do in your account? That's the part that I have a problem with. And so, Lolo, I love your question because it's you and tons of people who've been in the chat or sending in questions to us, and they always reference a Roth IRA and never questions about a Roth 401k. Now, we've talked about a lot here the history of retirement accounts and when all this came in. So, in Lolo's defense, she's self-employed, so this is part of what she's trying to do to secure her future, right? She's putting money in, and these were some of the vehicles, especially since the late 90s. This was the primary vehicle to prevent that open checkbook in regards to taxes, right? We don't know what the tax rate's going to be, so just pay it now and then you won't have to pay it later. Smart, right? Completely smart move. The IRA coming out first because it gave people that sense of control, like I can do it. It's the individual retirement plan, right? It's just mine now. It doesn't belong to a company. So I can, if I work for myself or if I work for somebody else, it doesn't matter. It's mine. I own it now. Well, that's a rabbit hole. We'll move on. The point is that once the 401k came into play, there was a reason why that was even created too. But I love the way that you describe the history and why UBIT was introduced and some of those things about IRAs that people don't talk about as often. But if you are trying to use this as an investor and you are trying to actively invest and utilize this for like a strategy in non-traditional investments, then what does that mean? And then what does that mean now that they're starting to raise capital gains tax and unrealized gains tax? What does all that mean if you are embedded into an IRA? What does it mean for the people who benefit off of your account too? Are they penalized in the same way from these taxes? Well, the answer is no. Okay.
Well, hold on. Don't leave that though. Because you
Okay.
said something a while back related to they make money regardless. Let's not skim over that. Like when you guys take the opportunity to, in Google 12B1 fee. Again, 12 I think it's 12-B 1 fee. 12-B 1 fee. The
Mm-hmm.
12B1 fee is a fee that, regardless of whether you make money or not, again, you could have lost money because the market crashed. Whether you make money or not, there's a percentage of your account that still goes to the person who is managing it. So it still goes to that financial institution that has it, whether you make money or not. And that's why you bring up the retirement gamble all the time. That's why there's it's simple math. The financial institution that has your account ends up taking 2/3 of the growth of your account over time. Why? It's because regardless of whether you're making money or not, they are continuing to make, which means they are creating a vehicle that achieves uninterrupted compound interest.
And they don't even have to have a degree.
Again, uninterrupted, meaning regardless of what happens, their money is continuing to grow. What if you could put your money in a position to make uninterrupted compound interest? If they are taking 2/3 of your account by having it, couldn't you be in a position where you could make 2/3 more? Are there vehicles out there that will allow you to make uninterrupted compound interest? The answer is yes. So, how do you transition from a vehicle where they are making 2/3 so that you can be making 2/3? That's where this control comes into play. How do you shift and pivot and understand what are those vehicles that you can then take advantage of so you can behave and perform just like them? Where is your vehicle with the 12B1 fee? So again, it goes back to asking better questions so that you can take more control over your money. And it also goes back to the goal. Just because you want to now have control over that 12B1 opportunity doesn't mean a self-directed 401k is right for you if you don't plan on putting it in a vehicle or in a position or in a place that it can actually build money for you.
Blues Kids has a comment here that I'm going to bring up.
I
And
love that name and I don't know why.
but can't you have a bigger yearly contribution if you have a 401k and SEP IRA so that you can invest 69k and catch up? I'm over 50.
Absolutely. And how about this? It's 76,500 is the total. Because
Right.
you're over 50, you're able to contribute 30,500 plus an additional somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 additional, which equates to no more than $46,000. So it's not just 69, it's 76.5.
And then what about commingling funds?
Yep, great point. And that wasn't even in my list. Commingling funds. So what another one of the strengths around having a 401k versus an IRA is if, let's say, you have a previous employer's plan that you move into a 401k and your spouse has a previous employer plan or several previous employer plans, we can create one properly structured self-directed 401k for you, which will allow you to then transfer funds from your previous employer plan and her previous employer plan into the same 401k, which now gives you a much larger pool to be able to pull from, to be able to contend with, which means your contribution limits have doubled. But in addition, if you're wanting to leverage those dollars to do whatever you want, that means you're now able to leverage and borrow against it in double the amount. So instead of it being 50% of what's in it up to 50,000, how about 50% of what's in it up to 100,000?
Yeah, well, that's pretty powerful, especially for people who own small businesses and they work together to be able to not have to manage so much, and they're able to go in together. It means that they're able to also invest together and keep their books clean and simple in that way. I know that for a lot of people, that part matters, which is why they would rather stay with their employer situation. They would rather stay with what their uncle does or whoever they know has done the things in the past, just simply because they know that they can get their questions answered and they're not having to recreate the wheel or risk not being in a situation where they feel confident, right? That they can do something, or that come tax time, they know what to expect. That's a significant concern too. And one of the questions that we had sent in was, I have a small business. Would a self-directed account be right? But I don't have a retirement plan. Would a self-directed account be right for me?
What's the goal? right? So the short answer to that question is yes. But the longer version of that answer is it really depends on the goal. And based off the goal, will I kind of identify what those opportunities are. But let's be clear. Let's say you do get a self-directed retirement account and you don't want to invest in real estate. You don't want to take all of these actions. Guess what? Your self-directed retirement account can open a brokerage account at Fidelity. It can open a brokerage account with Morgan Stanley, meaning you can still invest in the same mutual fund stocks and bonds from your self-directed account. It just means you have more control. Meaning, if you have a self-directed IRA or self-directed 401k, you open up a brokerage account with Morgan Stanley, you're investing a certain dollar amount at Morgan Stanley in their mutual fund stocks and bonds. If tomorrow the world shifted or your perspective changed or your education shifted to the point where you now wanted to make some type of non-traditional investment, you are not handcuffed or locked in to whatever that investment is in Morgan Stanley. It's just as simple as, hey, I'm going to sell off a few of my mutual funds, convert that to cash, transfer that back into my self-directed retirement account, and take action. Oh, and by the way, as that action that I've taken produces a return, I'm going to take that return and put it back into that Morgan Stanley account, which means it becomes its own machine. So never is there money sitting stagnant in that retirement account. You take action with the dollar amount that you want to take action. And when you don't, you put it into, I'll call it a modest or a less risky mutual fund stock bond portfolio at one of the traditional custodians that we've been talking about. How about this? And I know from experience, Morgan Stanley offers a high yield savings account for qualified accounts. Meaning, I do still invest in the market. Most of my stuff is in Amazon stock. But when I don't like what Amazon stock is doing, I liquidate it and move it into their Morgan Stanley qualified high yield savings account. So it just sits there. And so if I wanted to take advantage of some opportunity using my self-directed retirement account, I didn't have enough, I could transfer funds from my Morgan Stanley account into my self-directed 401k, write a check for my 401k, take advantage of the opportunity. As the return comes back, I move it back into my self-directed 401k checking account and then transfer it right back into my Morgan Stanley high yield savings account. So that money is at least making me I think it's 5.5% and no risk. So again, don't take the self-directed 401k as though, hey, if I don't want to take action, I can't have one. It's still about control. You can still put your money in those passive situations, even if you don't have a solid, I'll call it education or understanding, or you're nervous I can't remember the name of the person, but the comment around, I'm nervous about having a 401k. Okay, if you're nervous, you can still open a traditional brokerage account and place the money there. It's just that now you have more control. This dude's
Peaky,
tripping. Is he still,
we,
wasn't it a toothache or something? Is he still being medicated?
I think maybe, is that it?
It is Cinco de Mayo. So you have medication with the Cinco de Mayo. Is
Well,
everything okay?
in all
Dude,
fairness,
we appreciate it.
yeah,
Like,
we do
seriously.
appreciate it.
Thank
In all fairness, he did explain, and from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate you showing your appreciation to us.
That's pretty
But
awesome.
just for everybody, you don't have to do it this way. We're just letting you guys know. But here's the part. He is right about building a community, and he is right about it means that we all either get together and do something, or things get mighty strange. These fees, this siphoning, the people who are winning, regardless of if we win or lose, it doesn't matter. That part isn't even as important as understanding how you can win. And we say it all the time. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. It doesn't matter. If you're just waiting to find out where you end up, then you cannot be surprised to learn that it's at not enough, right? Wherever it is, it's not enough. And unless we are taking the action to educate and make sure that it's plenty, that you have complete provision, right? He was saying that he has had a really bad month, and he says, all I know right now is I've known from the moment I met you is that you two are helping people in numbers I can't count to. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's our only hope, is to say we have to stick together and we have to start having more of these conversations, and we have to start talking about this more. This cannot be taboo anymore, because it's not taboo when you get to the point where you realize it's not enough and you have to go ask for help. All of a sudden, talking about this and complaining about what services are or aren't available, or what inflation is doing, or how hard it is, that's suddenly not taboo, right? But it's all taboo to talk about how to prepare and plan for it. A lot of people also have the misconception that they're going to be okay because they have a pension, because they have whatever the benefits are. What's unfortunate is this is why all of those pensions and all of those state benefits are starting to go away or be compromised, because they have to be funded from somewhere. And if you aren't aware of even how these programs are funded, or what could contribute to impacting or influencing how they're continuing to be funded, then you might be surprised in 10 years if that was a part of your plan, right? We have to start getting educated, because it all falls back to us. Nobody says this wasn't your fault because it's now your burden. It's our burden, and therefore it's our responsibility, regardless of whose fault it is. It always lands with us. So now is the time, and we have a community here, and then we have one on Facebook as well. And I think that even in Facebook, people are afraid sometimes to ask questions inside the group, but that's where everybody learns, man. Somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I have this question and I want to talk about it, or this doesn't make sense to me. I want to challenge something that I've learned. Why did I learn it this way? And why is this wrong to know this information? Why can't I use this? You might find that it's not wrong. It's just you need to know how it fits inside of your machine. And we're going to ask, what are you building, right? Then let's talk about how it fits in. So thank you, Peaky. We really appreciate the support, and just for you to confirm that you can see what it is that we're trying to do out here. Charles, hi Charles, says, with a solo 401k, can you take out a loan from it and set the interest rate for less than prime plus 1%?
So can you? It's a self-directed 401k. Can you do A, B, C, and D? Yes, you can do A, B, C, and D. And then I'm saying whatever it is you want to do, you can do that. I think a better question is, should you? Is it financially responsible to? And that can be many answers. So here's what I mean. Let's say you have great credit and you want to borrow 50% of what's in your 401k. And because you have great credit, if you went to a bank, there is no way you're going to have to pay these high interest rates. If you went to go buy a car, you can almost guarantee you get that 0% financing, right? So if you can go to a bank and get it based off your credit worthiness, and you want to borrow against yourself and charge yourself the same rate that you would be able to get in an external facility, can you do that? Absolutely you can. So can you go buy a car at 0% and charge yourself 0% in your own 401k on your own 401k loan? Can you? You can. And because you have the documentation that says, hey, if I applied at Navy Federal right now, I'd get that same 0% financing. And so I'm going to create and fill out my loan documents for 0% financing. And I'm going to have the terms be the exact same terms that I would get. Rock on, knock yourself out. Because that will stand up in front of anybody's court. That will stand if you were, God forbid, ever audited. You've got the documentation. You've got the documentation, I guess, to kind of state that yes, this is something that you're capable of doing. But if you said, hey, I want to charge myself 35% because I know I'm paying it back to myself, why not? I want to charge myself as much interest as I can on this loan, but if you went to Bank of America to get that same loan, they would not charge you that. It's going to be hard to kind of stand in front of whoever might be auditing you to justify you charging yourself that dollar amount. So I think that's the part. So I think the guideline states a reasonable rate. It does not even give an amount. I have been kind of educated around prime plus 1 or 2%. I think the current loan that I have outstanding is prime. So prime plus 1 or 2%, prime minus 1%. Can you? Again, if this is something that you would be able to qualify for outside of a vehicle like this, then absolutely. There's no harm in that. But again, it goes back to what does the IRS state? They say reasonable. So it just needs to be reasonable. A lot of words.
Okay. So now let's talk about the boat. If you haven't won a boat or you want to win one for somebody else, now's the time. Put hashtag boat in the chat. And last time we didn't play the video and people were like, hey, why didn't you play the video? Well, I think it's inspiring. I don't think you can see it enough times. And sometimes we need that reminder of staying focused. What is this all about? We talk about this all the time, and it's those small decisions. Sometimes those decisions are just being open, staying focused on the goal, and even just taking the small steps, the tiny decisions, right, that add up to a larger result. There's an inspiring story that helps. It's almost like a gratitude adjustment, a mental adjustment in thinking about how you're approaching your journey and what's possible for you, how you're educating yourself along the way, or who you are surrounding yourself with. All of this matters in achieving your goal. And so this is why when we say we're about to give away the boat, this is what we mean. Hold on one second. In 1998, a British rowing team dreaming of the Olympic gold found themselves ranked 7th. Their focus had always been on the competition day, but they realized the keys to reaching their highest potential were hiding in the decisions that they'd make over those next 2 years.
Faced with two obvious choices, continue their current path and expect the same result, or give up, they discovered a third transformative option. They united under one guiding question: will it make the boat go faster? Every decision, every action was weighed against this mantra. If the answer was yes, they could or would have to do it.
If the answer was no, it was forbidden, non-negotiable. Prior to the competition, this team was doubted and ridiculed, but no one knew what they had been doing. And once they hit the water, they were nearly unrecognizable, achieved their pinnacle, and won the gold. So we ask you,
What is your goal? What are you willing to do to achieve it?
will your story feel unrecognizable, even to you? Are you willing to light your beacon and stay focused, stay committed? Is your story non-negotiable, or are you waiting to find out how you ranked? Your financial future is not a game. You are only competing with yourself and those in the boat with you, your family and the many generations to come.
Will this make the boat go faster? A sounding alarm, a beacon of clarity amidst turbulent life decisions.
It's not just about speed, but direction, purpose, and an unwavering commitment. Every choice, every sacrifice aimed at the goal.
The first agreement this team made was to become fully self-directed, making their health their wealth, adopting a new perspective on their time and freedom, and the decisions they could fully control to reach their goal.
Will we make your boat go faster? That is our pledge to you. Our mission is to arm you with knowledge, strategies, and insights to ensure that not only you reach the goal, but you do so long before your race is over.
Need some music.
All right. Here we go. Wait, where's our boat at? Hey, all right, there we go. So if you watch that and you put hashtag boat in the chat, we're about to spin to see if you won the boat. So and don't forget, if you do win, or if you have won before, let me put this up. This is where you go. You go here. This is where we have all of our resources. Okay, let's spin. First up, who's it gonna be? I hope To Dance can get her boat.
Right.
Hey!
Well done, well done.
Blues Kid.
So again, go to selfdirected.info. You'll see, hey, did you win a boat down there in the, down close to the bottom, down to the middle, and then fill out the form and we'll get it to you.
All right, here we go again. Did we get
Got like-
Tadams in here? Is she in here?
I didn't see her, but Scott has like 9 votes.
I'm scrolling up. Scott does have for his son. Well, he can get all the
deserved it.
votes. Yeah, he can get all the votes.
Deserved.
All right. Well, Tadam, she must have had to log off. That's all right.
She'll get a vote.
We'll make sure everybody gets one. All right. Who else? Wait, didn't it just pick Scott?
Told you, Scott got like 13 votes.
All right. Well, you know what happens when it starts picking the same person. One, we got to reset this thing.
Is that a DJ? That sounds like some scratching. It's like you were mixing there.
Are you cooking something? The tech gremlins.
Not me. Not me.
We'll try one more time. Okay. When this happens, we have to. You're messing with me.
I swear to, on everything. Here, I'll keep my hands right here.
Justin, is that you messing with us? Because I don't like it. Okay, let's spin one more time. We got to change up the energy. All right. Who's in here? We got to change the song, and it makes it pick a different person. I don't know why it works. I don't make the rules.
Got his. Let's do it one more time. Well done, Brenda.
All right, Brenda. Who else?
Brenda deserves a vote.
Brenda, get your
Brenda
boat.
works hard out there. Brenda works hard out there.
Rob says, is the water wet? Okay. We're out here drenched because I just kept splashing the water. Yeah, my bad, y'all. Okay, yes. Congratulations to the winners. Veronica says the tech gremlins are taking a swim. I hope so. What the heck was that? We don't even like that. But congratulations. Go to selfdirected.info/live. Down at the bottom, you can see, did you win? Are you a winner? You click that, then you fill out the form, and then we know who to send it to. So that's all. That's all the steps. That's it, right there. So congratulations. Okay, well, we have had. Oh, we did have another. Hold on.
Hold on. I got you. Right there.
Oh, you pulling up comments now?
Yeah, I got you. I just happen to be there.
All right, Mark. Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
You guys are so sweet in here. Mark says the 99% has been conditioned, not taught to be in fear of financial education in order to have the 1% control their wealth to ensure the 99% work for 40 years. Don't
That's
believe
it.
me? Do the
That's
math
it.
from 18 to the government retirement age.
That's it.
This is a rabbit hole right here that if you
All
haven't
by design. It is all by design. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you haven't gone down this starts at college, right? And all of these institutional systems that were developed along the way, and what are the new ones that are forming, and why are they forming, and who do they truly benefit? I think now we have access to more information than we ever did before, and it's our job to use it, right? And so to that, thank you, friend. Thank you, Mark. We've been wanting to connect with you. So please, if we haven't made that happen, let's make that happen. Put a time on the calendar so that and let us know that it's you, so that we can further discuss more of those, especially the tax strategies that you're using to educate people out there so that they can keep more of their money. We would love to be able to do that. Well, anywho, whether or not you feel like these topics that we discuss, or some of the things that we the points that we get really passionate about apply to you or not, I think there's one thing in particular that kind of pulls us all together, and that is what we like to end with. If you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
so stay tuned,
Stay protected.
stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique,
And I'm Donnell.
and our goal is to help you
Get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources, so don't sleep on those. We see a lot of people who have tuned in for months and months and months. We've seen you in the chat, we've seen you in our comment section, but we have not seen you opt in to get those resources. Some of those are 2 free books. We have a list here of everything that we're about to show you that is inside, including case studies and access to the calculators that we use. It's up to you to take those first steps, and we'd be honored if you take those steps with us, or at least come into our community, and so that we can, where it's really like forming a family. Each one teach one, right? We grow farther and faster when we grow together, and we truly believe that. So let me find here. Here we go. Okay, so if we'll be back on, if you're new here, please like, subscribe, and join us on this journey. We will be back here next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and all the standard times after that. Whatever those are for you, that's the starting point. We'll be back here on Wednesday. We won't be back here next Sunday. We may be making some changes, so be sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned. And we will see you guys back here on Wednesday. Thank you so much for all the love. We appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
Self-directed.